Okay guys, welcome back to another video. Anyways, I just want to show you some unfinished business I've had. These are knives I found in a box, some restoration projects as well. And I started the ones I've made here about 14 years ago, I'd say. And they're file knives, and some of them are saw blade knives. And I started them and just never finished them. More so because I don't take file knives and saw blade knives seriously anymore. I actually make knives from like 01 tool steel or 1080 or 1085. I went for a phase of commissioning knives and I stopped because I had surgery that was life-threatening, and plus the customer demand was just too much for me. I have a full-time job, a career in fact, and I just couldn't keep up with the demand. Customers will be ordering knives and 2 days later going, "Is it ready?" And I just couldn't be sort of keeping up with that demand. So having said that, I stopped making custom knives. I stopped making commissioned knives for sure. So please don't ask me, guys, because I'm not gonna. So now when I make a knife, which is not that often these days, I tend to make them and then just put them up for sale. I have sold a few file knives, but I don't generally. I generally use good steel and good materials, and my knife making skills are so much better than what it used to be. But these with files, I pick them up at car boot sales, and I look for like bastard files or even like your Nicholson files, your older style files. I pick up, saw blades as well, and then make them into knives too. And I was selling these ones at one point, so you can see I have my stamp there. I was selling them at one point, and I use them for experimenting and to teach myself knife making. That's what I do with these. So I don't mind if they don't look pretty. I don't mind if they're looking perfected. These won't get sold. These will just be made, and that'd be that. I might give them to people or lend them out, or hey, I might even do a giveaway here. But the saw blade ones, I'll experiment stuff. So these are my own personal ones I kept for myself because they weren't perfect. I wouldn't say they were at a standard for selling. Here's another one over here. This is my leather working tool now. That's the first one I ever made. That's my leather working tool. And what I do is I experiment with different types of grinds, different angles. Even like there, you see the file knife here, different texture. So I do that as well. And different shapes, as you can see, different shapes going on, different techniques. I might look at different handle materials and look at different techniques of putting them on. Like this one here, this was peened on, not glued. And normally when I make a knife, when I was commissioning them, I would always epoxy my knives on and use loveless bolts or Corby bolts or something down those lines. But I was practicing a bit of peening, so because that's an older technique to use for knives, and this is a bit thicker, this blade, not blade, but the handle. This one's a thinner one. This is a combination of peening the pins in as well as gluing it for that one. Here's a file knife I made ages ago, and I peened the handles on recently. This was an unfinished business that I finally got round to it. This is the one that lives like here in the garage to cut hay bales. And this one that I was just showing you a second ago, and I've got another one here. Let me just get it out of this sheath. This is one of my early woodlaws. This is made this about 19 years ago. That was pine that I got for my pallet. That was tent pegs. I glued them all in with a little rivet, and I did everything with hand tools only. So I kneeled the steel in the fire, so it was a Nicholson. I think it was a Nicholson file, and I filed everything off, the teeth off, and I grinded in everything with just a file. I shaped it with a hand saw, and filed all my little bits I needed and made this woodlaw only with hand tools. So you can see it's got that old school look about it. I really like it. It was my bushcraft knife for a while. Heat treated it and everything else. Even put the holes in with one of those hand crank drills. So everything on this knife was done by hand. No power tools whatsoever. Took a long time. A lot of hours went into this knife. Not perfect because it was one of my early ones. But there you have it. Anyways, I've got a few restoration projects here. These are things that I might turn into knives and things that I just need to fix. So that's what they are. And then this here I got at a car boot. Someone tried to modify it by the looks of it. Looks like it was a concave grind that's now trying to be convex, but I might turn it into like a little bowie or something, or a little hunting knife, I'm not sure. So I didn't do anything with that one. But these were unfinished business. Just practicing knife making. That was a file, believe it or not. Did that one with power tools, taking off all the teeth. But that's not what the video is about. I'm just going to start fixing these up and making them to usable knives. I won't take them out into the woods or anything. They're not going to be main bushcraft knives. These are just going to be knocking about, given to people. I might even do a little giveaway. Who knows? But I'm going to talk to you about, if you want to dip your feet into knife making, is how to do it. Get yourself some files, get yourself some saw blades, and just practice the techniques. Practice heat treating, practice putting bevels on without jigs, or freehand grinding. Practice things with jigs. Practice different tools that you can use. Practice the different angles, that you can put your bevel in. Different types of grinds, whether it's a hollow grind or a convex style grind, or even a Scandi style grind. Practice them all, even saber grinds. Practice different ways of putting handles on, whether it's peening them on like I've done on some of these, or gluing them on and using loveless bolts and things like that. Practice them, Today's video is all about the different ways you can fit a handle on, and that's what I wanted to focus on today. So let's ignore these. These are old unfinished business, and I will pick them up to show some demonstrations just to what to do, but they're not going to be sold, those knives, guys. They're just unperfected knives that are just, I'll keep them for myself. But let's talk about different, I've got some things over here, different ways that you can fit a handle on. Now, when I'm producing a knife that is let's say when I was doing custom knives, I would always epoxy the handles on, especially if I'm doing scales and it's not like a Puko where I'm, like a stick tang style knife. But I still epoxy them in. But just let's talk about the scales, the ones that you have, just so you understand the terminology here. A scale is when you have a knife like that and you put 2 bits of wood either side and then you fit it somehow. And generally I used to epoxy them on, and then I put obviously my pins in there as well. And I used to use a variety of different type of fittings. Nowadays with file knives, I don't epoxy them anymore because I don't even make them anymore, to be honest. I just don't take them seriously. I just fit them the easiest possible way and call it done, because they're not going to be used, my outdoor knives or anything like that. They're not going to be taking much abuse, so I don't see why I should put that much effort into them anymore anyways. But we're going to talk about different fittings. So things like this, you can get a pack of these. I've got these in Axminster. They only cost a couple of quid. And this was in where people make pens, people have hobbies of making pens, and you get these little tubes, and they make great lanyard tubes. So the cheaper to buy them like that, well, pen making, rather than just buying a long one. You can buy longer tubes. So that's as I said, different diameter, different thickness of tubes that you can get. So these are generally brass. Brass is quite common that I tend to use. Is there any other ones in here? I've got bigger ones as well. So you can see here, bigger tubes for bigger knives. So they make good lanyard holes, just in case you're wondering what that is. It's just a little hole so you can put some string through it. I don't put lanyards on all my knives. I've even got a stainless steel one here. Let's just bring that out so you can see there. Stainless steel is quite nice, I find, as the hardware for your handles. I also have used aluminium ones. Not that great, but I'll show you where aluminium comes into hand. I mean, I picked up these aluminium tubes from a store here in the UK that we have is B&Q. Some of you Brits will know that. And what I've done, here's some aluminium tube. I even put the brass pins, so I've got a long brass rod going all the way through that. I could pull that out if I wanted to show you on this side so you can see it. Hopefully the camera's picking that up. And then I'll glue that in there, and then I'll also cut it to shape of what I want, you know, so it's the size of what I want. And then when I use that in fitting the handles together, using that as a pin, it gives it the loveless bolt effect. So it looks like it's been done with loveless bolts, but no, it hasn't. So it gives it that effect. So I've done that in the past, which is quite cool. The knife that I gave to Sandy Jack, which is Jack Law, that was a file knife, and I gave that to him as a Woodlaw style one. That's the technique I was using then. Let's bring it up a notch though. There's other things that we can use to fit handles. So these bars are just normal pins. Just get them out. So yeah, so pins like that, different diameters as well, different thickness. You can just go ahead and like put that into obviously the two scales and the knife itself. You can pin them over if you wanted to, or just glue them and it'll still be solid. There's been times I've even used temp pegs, old temp pegs that are bent and stuff, and I've just turned them into knife handle pins. So that's something you can do there. And we've got different sizes. So here's some stainless steel ones that are, see if I can get one out. There you are. Stainless steel ones, a bit thin there. So again, that alone would do the job. There's even times where, let me grab one. I've taken an old nail, cut off the ends, and there's a bit of stainless steel, and that'd be suitable as a pin, you know, and you can pin it and everything, and it'll still make a good handle fin. So there's a way of cutting corners there. That's what I do to file knives nowadays. You know, I just literally pin them and that's it. But you can get more high quality stuff. These are brass ones. They're quite big. So pins are good to use. They're simple to use. They're very user friendly and they're good for beginners. Here's a nice fancy one. So if you can see the pattern here, I bought this from English Handmade Knives. I had a little voucher, and it's a mosaic pin. You can make these yourself. Something I've not done yet is made my own mosaic pins. I need to do that at some point. I've made my own Mike Carter and that in the past. But there, mosaic pins. And then you've got more mechanical fittings as well. That's these ones here. This is a loveless bolt. Get them different sizes. So basically what happens is, I'll just take one off. You would use countersinks like these here. You can make these yourself if you wanted to, but quite often you get them when you buy the bolt. Depends on where you're purchasing them from. And basically, you get your wood scales, you drill your normal holes where you want them, you'll countersink them, and then you'll thread this through the scale, and then that will hold that will sink right into the scale. And then the other side, you bolt it on like that, and then you can screwdriver it in, and it gets tighter and tighter, and the scales will just come together, and it then holds in place. You can do that on its own if you wanted to, and that would work, and it would keep the handle on. However, good practice for using loveless bolts is to glue them in as well. So use a combination of mechanical fittings as well as the epoxy, then you're going to get a really solid knife handle that will never come off. So generally, if I'm making knives from steel that I've purchased, good quality steel that I've purchased that's come annealed, I tend to use loveless bolts, or this other bolt that I'm about to show you as well, which is called Corby bolts. It has a very similar concept as loveless. However, I think loveless gives you a much tighter mechanic, but Corby bolts has like this, has a flat head either side, and then what you get is a bar. So that could be about the thickness of the steel that you're using. You can trim these down. Okay, so you can trim that down to the steel thickness, and again you need the countersink, and then that goes onto the scale on one end, and this is on the other end of the scale, and then once you start tightening it down, it brings it together. So that is Corby bolts. Really fan of Corby bolts. When you grinded it all down and you start shaping the handle, it just looks like a big pin, to be fair. So it would look like that on the end, it'll look like that once it's done, just flat. Where when you use loveless bolts, because you can get them in two tones, like that's a stainless steel bolt thread, and then you've got the bolt part itself, that's brass, then you'll get a steel on brass and you get a two-tone going on, which is quite nice. You can use the same tone if you wanted to. Corby bolts are quite good, so I've got a pack of them now, so I've got quite a few Corby bolts. I do like Corbys. Into some stainless steel Corby bolts, some smaller ones as well, so you get them different sizes. So that's two of my favourite ones that I'm very experienced with is loveless bolts and Corby bolts. I have tried making my own loveless, and I have used them on some of the little saw blades knives that I was putting together. Let me see if I can find some for you here. So here we go. I have tried making my own loveless, and what I've done is taken, the small nut and bolt kits you can get. You can get a pack of them. And all I was doing is I put it on a drill and I let that spin, and I was just putting a file there and grinding them. So now I've got these individual, some of them have got rusty, these little individual rings, and I'd use them just like the same as loveless bolts, but because they're so thin, you got to be careful because you might just grind too far back. So if you're going to use them on very thin and small blades like that. That's a very, very cheap way to get loveless bolts. I saw the process on YouTube. I've just put a load of them on this one bolt here, but it does work. I've done it and it works really, really well. But again, you just got to be cautious that you haven't got much of the bolt side. Okay, so you can make them yourself, and there is ways you can turn your own bolts and use tapping kits and what have not. Some other mechanical fittings. Here's one. I tend to use this. You might have seen me use this when I fixed up the handle on, the knockoff MOD knife that I had. I did a recent video of that. These are the bolts I was using for that. These are sort of like riveting. Well, not riveting, but they're like similar concept as Corby bolts. Okay, so you get flat end on one. That's a female end. And then you get whatever Phillips there on that side. And all you do is literally bomb together. That was a perfect handle. So I suppose mechanical fitting that was already on there. A good replacement for it. I could have glued it on, but I didn't want to because I got the knife for free and it was a quick fix. You can just use that as it is, or you could use that with epoxy if you wanted to. So yeah, that's something I've got there for knives that you just want to put quick handles on. You're not that bothered. I know BPS knives are doing very similar to that. They've just literally got these two Allen keys and you've got tighten the handle on. They're done. Send it out. Hence is why they can do it so cheaply. It's not to say it's a bad fitting because these are, tried and tested and they work. You don't have to actually epoxy your handles on. It just gives it a much more stronger fit. And for more custom knives, then yeah, go ahead and epoxy in them. What I've learned over the years is some of the knives that I've made, epoxying them was good experience and learning how to do that and put the scales on. But fittings like that are still just as good. Okay. You can get some quite cool ones as well. I've got some here recently. I want to make a folding knife at some point, and I've made a few folding knives, but I want to try this here. I want to do a friction folder. So this has got a bar in the center and what looks like a little Allen wrench, and it's been patterned in a way so it looks like a bullet. Get that into shot here. How cool does that look? Yeah, so quite decorative. And it's got either side, it's just threads. So the bar is the female, and then you just thread them on. So I'm going to use that for some friction folders that I might put together. And if I make a decent one, I'll sell it. But that's just another option. So I like to buy different things and try them out. Finally, there's another one that I'm going to be demonstrating. I hope I can do it in this video just to see how this goes. These are cutlery rivets, and I've not used cutlery rivets before, and I want to. So you got the flat bit there, you got a male on that end, you got another one that's got a tube, that's the female end, and it's flat there. And what you're meant to do I've used similar rivets like this in leatherworking, but not for cutlery. And what you're meant to do is put them together. Okay, so the male is too big for the female. There's a joke in that, isn't there? Okay, you put them together. You obviously have your scale and your steel, and obviously in the middle, so you got your scales together and your steel in the middle for your knife. And then you just go whack, smack it in, just bang it. And it's meant to be even quicker than peening knives and gives you a neater finish. And that's it. Now you could do it with glue if you wanted to. In this case, I'm not gonna. So I'm gonna take this knife here. I was thinking, let's see if the holes are drilled in at the right size for this. Yeah, perfect. And what I was going to do in this video, just quickly, is make up some scales that are rough, whack them in, and just see how that holds up, because I just want to see how it looks. So cutlery rivets, and this is something they use quite often in, you know, things like your kitchen cutlery as well. Sometimes they do come loose. I don't think they're great for shock absorbing, shall I say. So if you're battening your knife in it, it might not be the best thing. Peening might still be better than that, but for a quick knock up of a handle on a file knife like that, you know, you've not put that much effort into it, and you just want a little cutting knife, then great. See how cutlery rivets go. So that's what we're going to do today. You're going to take you along on my first time using cutlery rivets, and just to see how that goes and see what the outcome is, because I'm just curious about them, because that could be a solution for some of the smaller blades that I put together that are not going to take much abuse because they're thinner, and if they're being used as camp kitchen knives and stuff, that might be an ideal way of whacking the handles on without having to wait for anything to dry and then just putting them out there. Yeah. So, like I said, I won't do commissions, guys. But let's change the angle. I'm just going to whip up some scales quickly for this blade. Just going to take it to the bandsaw, do something quite rough. I'm going to choose the holes I'm going to use, and then we're going to see if we can put a handle on really quickly. So, I'll take you around to that. Okay, so I've whipped up the world's quickest scales. So nice and quickly done. What I might do is just quickly give that a bit of a polish on the ends. It's always good to do your ends first before you put them on. I just use nails that have been cut down to hold it off the best I can get them for now. I'm not going mental because it's just a file knife. I don't want to put as much effort into this. The point of this video, as I said, is to see what these are like. That's all I want to do. So this is the one that's blazing the trail for it, just to see how they go. So let's get some rivets out. And for knives like this, that's got no significance in life. That sounds harsh, doesn't it? It's going to be knocking about, and these are going to be suitable for the job. There we go, got two reach end. The thinness there, so just do a little countersink. It's going to go in like that. And I think I saw these originally. I don't know if anyone's watched the video where Morse Kahansky whips up a knife out of a saw and he's using a chisel. It's really crude, and I think these are the rivets he was trying to use. And he just goes bang, that's it, done, handle on. So that's the sort of theme I'm going for there. Just bang, handles on. So I might just do a little countersink quickly, and I could also use this as a bit of a tool to help me bang them down. But we'll see how much they fit on and how much compression they give. And once I've done that, I'm just going to round off the edges. I'm not going to go too crazy with contouring, and then call it done, and we'll see what that looks like. Okay, so I've countersinked them in those holes, so when we get the rivet, you'll see what that's going to look like. It goes straight in there now, so that's going to look decent. Okay, so punching them in and then shaping up the handles. So this is the bit I've been wanting to practice, because the video is not about how to put a handle on a knife. It's more so about these rivets. What are they like? You know, is there options that you can use without glue? Glue's messy. For a knife like this that has no importance, can we not just whack a handle on it quickly? Put it in. Right, that's in there now. And in case of putting that end just there, get them into place. What I'm going to do is just give this a little tap here. Use my nail here. Just tap them down. You can glue this, guys, if you wanted to. It's just looking at how well these fittings are without the glue for a knife like this. Okay, now for the fun bit. So I'm going to get the male ends in. Okay, so whacking them together. Let's see how that looks. Okay, so putting nail head sticking upwards. Sort of winging this as we go along, guys. And I've got this bit here that I'm going to put on the nail head. So pop that in place. First time for everything here, guys. I should have taken this blade up. Good practice, but God, it's going nowhere. That's easier than peening. I like it. Cutlery rivets for your quick file knives. I know some manufacturers out there use this for their knives, and they whack the knives on and call it done. This is why it's made me think, why can't we do that? So that is a shortcut and a half, if you ask me. Right, let's bring you back to the table, show you what that looks like. Obviously the shaping needs doing, but that's going absolutely nowhere. I could probably smack it a bit more, but I'm impressed with that. So that's that fitting on there. All I'm going to do now is just shape up handle and see what the final product looks like. But so far, so good.
Okay, so this is the final article. I'm not going to do any more on this knife. I haven't really worked down the grits on the sandpaper or measured the scales to make them symmetrical on either side. However, I'm really impressed of how the pins have held the handle on, and that's the whole point of this particular video, is how the pins do. So these are cutlery rivets and they turn out really well. They polish up really well. They just look like regular pins to me. They didn't have to glue anything, and yeah, I'm happy with that. This knife is not going to be in use. It's not something I'm going to be taking out or anything like that, but you'll have a place somewhere. I'll probably stick it around the homestead somewhere to cut things. So I'm really happy how that's turned out. So guys, if you've enjoyed today's video, give me a thumbs up and then like and subscribe to my channel, and let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of these cutlery rivets. You know, is this a way to go for file knives and knives you want to make quickly and on the fly without having to glue things up? Just let me know. So what's your thoughts on cutlery rivets?